Hello everybody, welcome back, or welcome for the first time to our channel. I just want to remind you that we talk about strange, mysterious, and amazing stories. So if you like that sort of thing, please like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. With that said, let's get to today's story. This is the first part of a series of amazing stories of people surviving in extreme situations, against all odds. Let's get to it. Welcome to Storytime. On January 23rd, 2006, Ricky Megee, who was 35 years old, was driving through the Australian outback on his way to a new job in Western Australia when something happened. Now, we don't really know exactly what it was that happened to him because he has given different stories over the years. One was that he picked up a group of hitchhikers, and the next thing he remembers was waking up in a shallow grave in the outback with dingoes scratching at plastic wrapped over him. In another version, he said that he picked up only one Aboriginal hitchhiker who he thinks must have drugged his drink at some point, ended up again with him in a shallow grave and dingoes scratching at him. In yet another story he gave, he said that his car broke down. And finally, there was another about him having been carjacked by an armed gang. But the police never found evidence of any crimes. Whatever the reason for what happened, the reality is that he found himself in a most dire situation. He woke up in the middle of nowhere. He was unable to locate his car and clueless about his exact whereabouts. But one thing was sure, he was out in rugged, perilous terrain. The Tanami Desert, which is where he was, can reach up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and get very, very cold at night. And not only that, there are all sorts of dangerous animals. So, at the beginning, he started to walk, and he managed to walk for 10 days or so through the desert, thinking erroneously that the further he walked, the less time it would take for rescuers to find him. So, he kept on walking, often losing consciousness because of heat exhaustion. He claims to have made temporary shelters using branches and leaves, and says he mainly lived off of eating frogs, leeches, snakes, and drinking water from dams and waterholes. When he couldn't find water, he drank his own urine. At night, he barricaded his shelter with rocks to prevent the dingoes from trying to eat him as he slept. Luckily, he had some things going for him. One, that even though temperatures were high, it was the middle of wet season. And two, there was an abundance of small animals he could eat. And finally, he was lucky enough to find an old windmill, which, although decrepit, provided him protection and shelter. But even with this sort of good luck, after some time being exposed to the elements, he was extremely weak, to the extent that he was unable to travel as far on his daily foraging expeditions. He also said that at one point he had like an abscess on one of his teeth, which could have been fatal for him in that weak state of his. So he pried it out with his car keys. All in all, he would survive like this for 71 days. But still, authorities were baffled, maybe are baffled by his case. Eventually, workers on a remote cattle ranch stumbled upon Megee. He had become skeletally thin, having lost more than 100 pounds. He was starving, sunburnt, and suffering from malnutrition and exposure. Birindudu station manager Mark Clifford described Megee as a walking skeleton. When he was brought to the station, he said that the area in which he was found was one of the most isolated places in Australia. He was taken to a local hospital and treated for severe dehydration and malnutrition. But besides that, he seemed to be all right and he recovered quite quickly. What exactly had happened to him remains a mystery. Authorities originally expressed skepticism about his story, and his vehicle has never been found. This is how Megee described his ordeal in his 2010 autobiography, Left for Dead. He said that there had been 3 men sitting on the roadside who had run out of gas, and that he had offered to give one of them a lift to a gas station. Megee posited that possibly he could have been stabbed with a drug syringe during a struggle. Either way, Megee later recalled feeling increasingly dazed and confused, and then he blacked out. before he recovered consciousness hours later. He also said that his attackers did not leave him immediately. They overpowered and stunned him. He later awoke in their camp. They had a gun, he said, but they never used it. They brought him water. After an unknown period, these carjackers lifted camp and they disappeared. But before they left, they stole his shoes and left him with the $12.30, which had been in his pocket. The Sydney Morning Herald suggested that there were some doubts over elements of the account, and reported that Megee was attempting to sell his story to a commercial television station. It was also reported that the police, too, initially had doubts about the story because of Megee's previous minor drug convictions. Megee denied allegations that his account was in any way misleading and even offered to appear live on television and eat frogs to prove he was telling the truth. ABC Radio reported that Megee had told his story to them for free, although only after trying unsuccessfully to persuade the station to match a $15,000 offer he said he had received from elsewhere. The doctor who treated Megee in Darwin commented that it was very difficult to either deny or validate his story, as he said he was a mess when he came in, but he had also responded so well to the treatment provided by dietitians, nutritionists, and physicians. An expert on outback survival acknowledged that Megee's survival was not as surprising as one might think. It was possible, he said, to survive in the bush for up to 3 years, and that there are some areas where it's difficult to survive and others where you can. For example, the area where Megee was, he described as dry country, which is, pretty severe country there. Other survival experts credit Megee's survival on his instinct for solving the basic requirements of water, food, and shelter, and also adopting a survival mindset that helped pull him through. Although it is a very interesting story, and the condition he was in when he was found seems to point to him having really survived an extreme situation, I guess we will never know. In his book, he describes how he says he managed to survive in such conditions. Well, that's it for today. Leave us a comment if you have any theories or thoughts about Ricky Megee's story. What do you think? Is it true? Is it a setup? Did he do it for fame and fortune? Is it all like a hoax? I don't know. Let us know what you think. We hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified of our weekly videos. Thanks, and have a nice whatever it is wherever you are.